The first time I saw her, the room changed. Not loudly. No thunderclap. No music swell. Just a quiet shift, like the air remembered it had a body. She was standing near the window, light brushing her shoulders. Not posing, not aware of being watched, just existing in that calm, composed way that made everything around her seem deliberate. My friend was talking to me about some weekend plans I wouldn't remember later. I only remember her, the way she turned slightly, her hair falling forward, her hand resting against the frame. She looked over when she felt the silence. Our eyes met for a fraction too long. "Hi," she said, soft but sure. Her smile wasn't practiced. It arrived slow, like she was weighing whether I'd earned it. I said something. I thought hi back, but the sound came out thin, as if my throat hadn't quite agreed to it. She was older than I expected. Not in the way people mean when they say it. Not about years, but presence. She carried herself like someone who'd already survived her share of storms. My friend called her mom, but that word didn't fit the woman in front of me. "Coffee?" she asked. "Sure," I said. The way she moved was quiet, measured. She wasn't performing, but everything she did seemed intentional. Her bracelets caught the light when she reached for a cup. Her perfume, something faint and warm, hung in the air just long enough to pull me closer without moving. I watched her pour the coffee, her sleeve slipping slightly down her wrist. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did. When she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed, nothing more than that. But it was enough to send a current up my arm that I pretended not to feel. "You're quieter than I expected," she said, eyes lifting briefly to meet mine. "I just didn't expect." I stopped. She waited, amused. "Didn't expect what?" I shook my head. "You make strong coffee." Her laugh was low, effortless. "You're polite." Most of his friends just raid the fridge. There was no reason for my pulse to react to a simple laugh, but it did. Every time she looked at me, I had to look somewhere else. The air felt charged with something unnamed, a kind of awareness that didn't belong in a kitchen between a guest and his friend's mother. The afternoon drifted lazily. My friend disappeared upstairs to grab something, and the sound of his door closing made the silence feel different, private, almost dangerous. She leaned against the counter, sipping from her own cup. "So," she said, tilting her head, "what are you studying?" "Architecture," I replied. "I like structure." She smiled again, slower this time. "That fits you." "How's that?" "You pay attention to the details most people miss." I froze, because she wasn't talking about buildings. Outside, the sky shifted, soft rain beginning to tap against the glass. The sound filled the spaces our words left open. I could feel her gaze, even when she looked away. She reached up to adjust her necklace, a small, absent motion, but her hand trembled slightly before she caught herself. Something unspoken passed between us then, a fragile recognition. The front door opened suddenly, breaking the spell. My friend's voice called out, "Hey, you too good?" I looked away first. She set her cup down too quickly, a small clink against the counter. "Perfect timing," she said, her tone light, almost teasing. But when she turned toward me, her eyes lingered for a heartbeat longer than they should have. And that's when I knew, even if nothing ever happened, even if I never saw her again, I'd never be able to forget that look. Some moments don't end. They just wait. That I told myself it was harmless, that I just liked being around her house, that the warmth, the quiet, the faint hum of her music were enough reasons to drop by when my friend wasn't even home. But the truth was simpler and harder. I came back because she was there. The next time I saw her, it was late afternoon again, soft lights spilling through the curtains, dust floating like slow snow. She was sitting on the couch, reading, glasses sliding a little down her nose. "You're early," she said without looking up. I shrugged, awkward. "He texted me to wait here. He's running late." She closed the book, marking her page with one finger. "He usually is." A small smile, knowing, restrained, then silence. She gestured toward the armchair. "You can wait here." I don't bite. That line would have been nothing in anyone else's mouth. But with her, it lingered. I sat, pretending to check my phone. My hands were steady, my heartbeat wasn't. She asked if I wanted tea, then caught herself mid-sentence. "You probably want something stronger, don't you?" I laughed softly. "Tea's fine." When she brought it over, she didn't hand me the cup right away. She just stood there for a second, watching me, as if she was studying her own hesitation. Then she set it down, careful not to meet my eyes. The silence stretched again. The kind that feels like both people are thinking the same thing, but refusing to name it. She broke it first. So, tell me, do girls your age still believe in forever? Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. I don't know, I said. Do you? That made her laugh quietly, the kind of laugh that comes from somewhere tired. I used to, she said. Then life kept changing its mind. She leaned back, looking out the window. I saw her hand drift to her ring finger, bare, but marked by a faint line. Divorced? I asked, then instantly regretted how blunt it sounded. 3 years, she said, without looking at me. He found someone younger. Said I stopped being fun. Her voice didn't shake, but something in it did. I wanted to say something. Anything, but words felt useless. So I didn't. She glanced back at me, studying my quiet. What about you? What about me? Anyone waiting for you? No, I said. Not really. Why not? I hesitated. Maybe, because I don't know what I want yet. She smiled faintly. That's the goo part. You still have time to figure it out. Do you? I asked. Her breath caught, barely audible. Then she looked at me. Really looked. And for a moment, I saw every unsaid thing between us reflected in her eyes. Curiosity, fear, loneliness, and something that felt dangerously close to hope. The rain started again, soft against the windows. I reached for my cup just as she reached for hers. Our fingers brushed, that same accidental, deliberate touch, and neither of us moved away this time. Her hand stilled. Mine stayed. Outside, the sound of rain deepened, filling the silence that words would have ruined. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. Some lines don't need to be crossed to change everything. It started happening without planning. Those small coincidences that didn't feel like coincidences. I'd find myself at their house again, waiting for my friend who was running late, or who had just stepped out. And she'd always be there, doing something simple, folding laundry, watering plants, humming to a song that didn't belong to this decade. She didn't ask why I kept coming. I didn't ask why she never told me to stop. That evening, the light outside was fading fast. A summer storm building, thunder somewhere distant. She was in the kitchen again, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back loosely. There was something undone about her, something less guarded. Your friend said he'll be home in 10, she said, glancing over her shoulder. Right, I murmured. She turned off the tap, drying her hands slowly, watching the window as lightning flashed. The storm's close, she said. Yeah. Silence. Not the empty kind, the kind that hums with everything unsaid. When she reached past me to grab a glass, her arm brushed my shoulder. Light, but enough. I felt her pause there, just for a second too long. Sorry, she whispered. But she didn't step back right away. I could feel the warmth of her skin, the faint scent of her perfume, the same one that clung to my sleeve the first time we met. It's fine, I said, though my voice wasn't steady. She turned her head slightly, close enough that I saw the small line near her mouth, the faint tremor when she exhaled. For a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to the distance between us, small, fragile, electric. Then thunder cracked, sudden and sharp. We both flinched, breaking the spell. She laughed under her breath, almost nervously. Guess I'm jumpier than I thought. You don't seem like someone who scares easily. I used to think that too. Her eyes lingered on me, and for one unguarded second, I saw it, the want she tried to hide behind composure. A sound upstairs, footsteps. Her son's voice, faint but close. She stepped back instantly, her hand brushing her hair, the calm rushing back to her face like armor. He's home, she said softly. I nodded, pretending my chest wasn't still tight. He came down, phone in hand, smiling. Hey, man, you made it. Mom didn't bore you, did she? Not at all, I said quickly, glancing at her. She gave a small, polite smile, practiced this time, like nothing had just happened. But when she turned to pour water into a glass, her hand shook slightly. A single drop hit the counter and stayed there, trembling, just like the air between us. Later, as I was leaving, she followed me to the door. Drive safe, she said. Her voice was calm again, but her eyes, they held something that words couldn't smooth over. I hesitated, about to say something I knew I shouldn't. But then her son called her name from the kitchen. She looked back, then at me, the smallest trace of regret in her expression. Good night, she whispered. And before I could answer, she closed the door halfway. Not shut, not open. Just enough to leave me standing there, heart pounding, wondering which of us would be the first to pretend this wasn't happening. Some doors never close all the way. It had been weeks since that storm, and yet, somehow, we kept finding reasons to cross paths. She'd text my friend, and I'd answer instead. He'd ask me to drop something off. She'd be the one to open the door. Every meeting felt accidental on the surface, but beneath it, something deliberate pulsed. Neither of us said it out loud. Maybe because once words appeared, we'd have to admit what this was. That evening, the sky was heavy again, low and bruised with rain. I brought back a book her son had borrowed. She opened the door barefoot, her hair slightly damp, wearing a loose sweater that fell off one shoulder. "He's out," she said, voice soft. "You can wait if you want." I should have said no. Instead, I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and rain. The lamps were low. Something about the quiet felt different tonight, less hesitant, more fragile, like the silence before an answer. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and nodded toward the couch. "You always come when he's not home." I froze. "That's not on purpose, isn't it?" Her tone wasn't accusing, just curious, like she already knew the truth and wanted to see if I'd say it. I didn't. She walked closer, stopping just a little too near. "You make it very hard to forget you were here," she said. I tried to laugh it off, but it caught in my throat. "You say that like it's a bad thing." Her eyes lifted slowly. "It should be." We stood there, the distance between us shrinking with each heartbeat. I could see the faint reflection of the lamp in her eyes, the quick rise and fall of her chest. "Do you ever think about—" I started, but she interrupted. "Don't finish that," she whispered. Her hand brushed my arm. Light, hesitant, then still. I didn't move. Couldn't. The touch was barely there, but it felt like the center of the world had shifted a few inches closer. She exhaled slowly, her voice trembling just enough to betray her calm. "You're too young to know how dangerous this is." "Then tell me to leave," I said. She didn't. For a long moment, she just looked at me, searching, afraid, wanting. Her fingers, resting near my wrist, twitched slightly before she drew them back. I caught her hand before she could. Her breath caught. Her eyes flicked to mine. "This isn't right," she said, though she didn't move away. "Then why does it feel like it is?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, I saw everything she'd been holding back. Loneliness, desire, guilt, all tangled into something that made the air too heavy to breathe. She leaned in, not enough to touch, but close enough that her hair brushed against my hand. "Don't," she whispered, though her voice shook like a plea. Thunder rolled again, closer this time. We stayed there, suspended in that fragile, trembling space between wrong and inevitable, where one breath could change everything. And then, a sound. A car door outside. Her son's voice, faint but unmistakable. She stepped back sharply, heart in her eyes, guilt already rising to replace what had almost happened. "I can't," she said, barely audible. I nodded, though neither of us moved. The sound of keys at the door filled the silence. And just before it opened, she looked at me one last time, eyes wet, lips parted with a word she didn't say. Some moments end before they begin, and that's what makes them unforgettable. For days afterward, we avoided each other without trying to. No texts, no visits, no excuses to pass by her house. But the silence between us wasn't distance. It was pressure, waiting to break. Then, one night, she called. Her voice was calm at first. Too calm. "Can you come by?" she said. Something in her tone, quiet urgency, a tremor she couldn't hide, made me say yes before I thought. When she opened the door, she wasn't composed. Her eyes were red, her hair unpinned. The room behind her was dim except for a single lamp on the floor. "Everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "You should know before someone else tells you." I didn't understand until she said my friend's name. "He saw us," she whispered. My stomach tightened. "Saw us when?" "That night," she said. "Through the window." The words hit like cold water. She turned away, pressing her hand to her forehead. "He hasn't said anything yet, but I know he will. He's been different. Quiet." I took a step closer, but she lifted a hand. Not to stop me, just to steady herself. Her fingers trembled slightly. "I shouldn't have let it get this far," she said. "You're his friend." Don't," I said softly. But she shook her head. "You don't understand. I've already made enough mistakes. You don't need to be another one. I wanted to be angry at the situation, at the timing, at everything that had made this impossible. But all I could do was watch her. The way her shoulders tensed when she said a mistake, the way her voice cracked when she tried to sound detached. You think this was a mistake? I asked. Her eyes flicked to mine. It has to be. Then why call me? That question hung there, heavy real. She didn't answer. Not right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because I wanted to see you again before everything changes. The air shifted. We stood too close again. Close enough that her breath brushed my cheek when she exhaled. You shouldn't have come, she said, though she leaned closer when she said it. I know. Her hand grazed my chest, not as an invitation, but as if she needed to convince herself I was real. I told myself it was just loneliness, she said. But it's not. It hasn't been for a while. The honesty in her voice made something inside me crack open. That mix of fear and wanting that never quite fits into words. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her face for a heartbeat. Eyes wide, raw, unguarded. Someone will get hurt, she whispered. Maybe we already have. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the truth she'd been trying to bury. She wanted. Else tells you. I didn't understand until she said my friend's name. He saw us, she whispered. My stomach tightened. Saw us when? That night, she said. Through the window. The words hit like cold water. She turned away, pressing her hand to her forehead. He hasn't said anything yet, but I know he will. He's been different. Quiet. I took a step closer, but she lifted a hand. Not to stop me, just to steady herself. Her fingers trembled slightly. I shouldn't have let it get this far, she said. You're his friend. Don't, I said softly. But she shook her head. You don't understand. I've already made enough mistakes. You don't need to be another one. I wanted to be angry at the situation, at the timing, at everything that had made this impossible. But all I could do was watch her. The way her shoulders tensed when she said a mistake, the way her voice cracked when she tried to sound detached. You think this was a mistake? I asked. Her eyes flicked to mine. It has to be. Then why call me? That question hung there, heavy real. She didn't answer. Not right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because I wanted to see you again before everything changes. The air shifted. We stood too close again. Close enough that her breath brushed my cheek when she exhaled. You shouldn't have come, she said, though she leaned closer when she said it. I know. Her hand grazed my chest, not as an invitation, but as if she needed to convince herself I was real. I told myself it was just loneliness, she said. But it's not. It hasn't been for a while. The honesty in her voice made something inside me crack open. That mix of fear and wanting that never quite fits into words. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her face for a heartbeat. Eyes wide, raw, unguarded. Someone will get hurt, she whispered. Maybe we already have. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the truth she'd been trying to bury. She wanted. This as much as she feared it. Then, from the hall, a noise, faint, unmistakable. A floorboard creaked. Her breath hitched. Her eyes darted past me toward the sound. Someone was there. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The silence between us turned sharp, electric. Whatever came next, the line we'd been dancing around had finally blurred beyond recognition. What was once temptation had become something far more dangerous, something neither of us could undo. The night didn't move. It just waited, thick with rain, with silence, with everything we hadn't said. We both heard the sound in the hall, that faint creak that changed everything, but no one appeared. Just the echo, the weight of almost being caught. When the quiet returned, it felt heavier than before. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. This has to stop, she whispered. Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her, fingers trembling as she reached for the counter, needing something solid to hold on to. I stepped closer, unable to keep my distance anymore. Then say it like you mean it. She looked up. What? That you don't want me here. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The truth hovered there, fragile, defiant. The storm outside finally broke open, rain hammering the windows. The sound filled every corner of the room, as if trying to drown out what neither of us could say. You think I don't want you? She said quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her gaze softened, but her breath came unevenly now. Each inhale a fight between reason and need. This isn't about wanting, she said. It's about everything that comes after. She turned away, hands gripping the edge of the table. Her voice lowered. Raw? I've already lost one life. I'm not ready to ruin another. I hesitated, then moved closer, until the space between us disappeared. My reflection caught in the window beside hers. Two people standing too near to pretend anymore. You're not ruining anything, I said. She shook her head. You don't know what it costs to want something you can't keep. Then teach me, I said, softer this time. That made her still. For a long, suspended moment, neither of us moved. Then she turned, slowly, as if the motion itself might shatter the fragile air between us. Her eyes searched mine, for resistance, for doubt, but found none. She lifted her hand, brushing a strand of wet hair from my forehead. Her touch lingered. Every time I see you, she said, voice barely a breath, I remember what it feels like to be seen again. Her words trembled at the edges, not rehearsed, not safe. Just true. Our foreheads nearly touched now. Her perfume, warm, familiar, filled the space between us. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. Her fingers traced my jaw, slow, uncertain, before stopping halfway. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then she pulled back just enough to look at me fully, her expression raw, illuminated by a flicker of lightning. I can't, she said. But I have to. Her hand slipped away, leaving warmth where it had been. We stood there, close enough to feel what we'd both chosen to deny. She smiled faintly then, the same slow, knowing smile that started everything. Someday, she said, you'll understand why walking away was the only way I could stay. The rain softened. The light shifted. I turned toward the door, but before leaving, I looked back. She was still there, still watching, one hand pressed to her chest, as if holding something she didn't want to lose. And in that silence, I finally understood, love doesn't always ask to be kept. Sometimes, it just asks to be remembered. The door closed softly behind me, not with finality, but with a promise that some moments never really end. Time passed differently after that night. Slower somehow, quieter. We didn't see each other for weeks. No calls, no visits, no chance encounters in doorways that felt like accidents. I told myself I was over it, that what we'd shared had been a passing current, strong but temporary. But some people don't fade. They stay, quietly, in the spaces between thoughts. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I was walking through town when I saw her across the street, a grocery bag in her arms, the same calm composure she always carried, though a strand of hair had escaped and brushed against her cheek. For a moment, I froze. I thought about pretending not to see her, about keeping the peace we'd built through silence. Then she noticed me. Our eyes met, and just like the first time, the air changed. She smiled, not the careful, distant one from before, but something smaller, softer, real. We both crossed the street at the same time, meeting halfway. You look good, she said, voice gentle. So do you. A pause. Not heavy, just enough to remind us how much we hadn't said. How's he? I asked, meaning her son. Better, she said. He knows I care about him. That's enough. I nodded. I didn't want to make things harder. I know, she said, and there was no bitterness in her voice, only understanding. You were never the problem. The wind picked up, carrying a faint scent of rain. She tucked her hair behind her ear, a small, familiar gesture that felt like déjà vu. We ended up sitting at a small cafe nearby, not planned, just easy. She stirred her tea without looking at me. Do you ever think about that night? She asked quietly. I didn't lie. All the time. She exhaled, a soft, shaky sound. Me too. I reached across the table, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Her hand met mine, tentative at first, then steady. No explanations. No apologies. Just two people who had carried something fragile between them and finally set it down. You were right, I said. Walking away didn't end it. It just made me see it clearer. Her eyes lifted to mine, and in them I saw peace. Not absence, not regret, just quiet acceptance. We'll always have that, she said. I nodded. Yeah, we will. When we stood to leave, she reached out. Her fingers brushed my face, her thumb tracing lightly across my cheek. Then she leaned in and pressed her forehead to mine. A breath shared, a promise unspoken. Take care of yourself, she whispered. You too. And for the first time, I didn't feel the ache of goodbye, only warmth. The kind that stays, even after you walk away. As I watched her disappear into the crowd, the world felt softer somehow. Not because we'd ended, but because we'd understood. Some stories don't last forever. They just need to be real. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Would you like to hear more stories like this? Slow burn, emotional, and human? Tell me what kind of love story you'd want next. Secret, second chance, or something completely new.